You can clearly see it. The image portrays a first-century Hebrew man. The hairstyle alone reflects the fashion of that era, distinctly Hebrew in style. He stands about 6 feet tall, his body brutally scourged from head to toe, bearing every mark of a violent crucifixion. Now, Mel Gibson, the creative force behind some of Hollywood's most controversial and unforgettable films, returns with a bold promise. I'll show you the real Jesus Christ. But is this a calling born of divine inspiration? Or a calculated move to reignite controversy and claim the spotlight once again? And with a past as turbulent as Gibson's, the question lingers. Can he truly be the voice behind Christianity's most sacred story? If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel to help us reach 2,000 subscribers quickly. Your support means the world to us. The story of Mel Gibson's journey with faith is as compelling as any of his directed blockbusters. It's a roller coaster of skyrocketing highs, tumbling lows, and unexpected turns that only life could have written. It all started in the arms of a very religious Catholic family, where religion was the cornerstone of their lives, rather than just a Sunday ritual. Belief was a pillar of support for his parents, particularly his father, who helped mold young Mel as they survived every storm. However, let's be honest, being raised in a religious household does not ensure that one will remain morally upright. Life has a way of throwing curveballs, and temptations can appear when you least expect them. That's exactly what happened to Gibson. Not only did Hollywood come knocking on his door, bringing with it unthinkable success, fame, and fortune, but it also marked the beginning of a darker chapter that he wasn't ready to face. He once described himself as a pretty wild boy, and if you followed his career, you'll see how true that is. Then came The Passion of the Christ, a movie that shocked the world and left audiences divided. Was it an accurate representation of Christ's life and mission, as Gibson asserted? Or was it just Hollywood's interpretation of heavenly drama? Mel Gibson's rise in Hollywood wasn't all glitz and glamour. Sure, he had the fame, fortune, and success that most people can only dream of. But behind the scenes, his life was falling apart. After getting caught up in the party scene and making some questionable decisions, he quickly found himself in the grip of a severe addiction. He turned alcohol into a way out, and the more he used it, the more his life became unmanageable. At his lowest point, he found himself standing at the brink of a window, truly considering taking his own life. Envision a man who appeared to have everything, still feeling so lost and empty that he was ready to throw it all away. But something changed at that crucial moment. He didn't take that step. Instead, at the age of 35, he had what he would later refer to as a silent awakening. It wasn't the type of scene you see in movies, no angelic choirs singing in the background or lightning slicing the sky. It was delicate and very intimate. After realizing how far he had deviated from the religion that had once served as his compass, he decided to return to God. And when he did, something inside him changed. The Bible, which he had previously viewed as just another dusty old book, suddenly came to life. The story of Christ's suffering became more than just a religious story. It became something he felt in his spirit, something unfiltered and deeply human. It turned into a captivating story that was worth telling the world in a way that had never been done before. The concept for the Passion of the Christ started to take shape at that point. But the journey didn't stop there. He reportedly struggled with the idea until one day, a book physically dropped off a shelf and landed at his feet. And it was not just any book. It was The Dolorous Passion of Our Lord Jesus Christ by Sister Anne Catherine Emmerich, a 19th century mystic who claimed to have seen visions of Christ's suffering. The book changed everything. Whether it was due to pure coincidence or something more divine, it wasn't just retelling the Gospels. Beyond what was recorded in the Bible, the Dolorous Passion was filled with tragic, vivid details. The crucifixion, was depicted in graphic detail, much more brutal than most people could have imagined, with scenes of Mary wiping up her son's blood and cruel moments of suffering. The more Mel Gibson read, the more he felt compelled to bring the story to life. What began as an idea swiftly evolved into a mission. This was not going to be just another blockbuster from Hollywood. For Gibson, it turned into a profoundly spiritual adventure that would test him in every manner conceivable. He had no intention of making just another religious movie. He aimed to create something that would deeply disturb people and compel them to view Christ's suffering in a way that had never been done before. He knew it was a bold goal, and it wouldn't be easy. What exactly did he do to get ready for such a demanding project? The lengths he went to may surprise you. Gibson agreed that undertaking a job this significant required serious preparation, and he did prepare. He threw himself into every part of the narrative, from studying old books to recreating ancient languages. Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ wasn't just a biblical movie. It was a linguistic exploration of the first century, featuring Aramaic, Latin, and Hebrew. Gibson aimed for unadulterated authenticity, with each language serving a specific purpose. Aramaic for Jesus and his followers, Latin for the Romans, and Hebrew for the religious authorities. At first, Gibson preferred to portray the story through facial expressions and emotion rather than with subtitles. But practicality won out. Since Jesus' exact dialect isn't fully recorded, he enlisted Jesuit scholar Reverend William Fulco to ensure historical accuracy. Fulco used his expertise and creative thinking to reconstruct Aramaic conversation. The outcome? Speech patterns and dialogue that reflected the character's socioeconomic status, helping to create an environment that felt as authentic as possible. For example, Roman soldiers spoke rough, unpolished Latin, whereas Pilate's Latin was elegant and aristocratic. This small but meaningful detail added depth to the film's immersion. Reverend Fulco even intentionally included linguistic errors, like mispronunciations, to reflect how characters might struggle in a multilingual society. Although some scholars criticized the language's accuracy, Fulco admitted that compromises were necessary for flow and clarity. The Passion of the Christ set a new benchmark for historical authenticity in religious filmmaking. Despite some disagreements over its accuracy, Mel Gibson's The Passion has been hailed as a compelling portrayal of Jesus. Gibson fact-checked the screenplay with theologians, religious scholars, and both Jewish and Catholic experts to guarantee authenticity. Rather than relying solely on the Bible, he combined the accounts of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John into one coherent narrative, a difficult task given the variations in each gospel. This wasn't just a Hollywood project. It was a careful attempt to strike a balance between historical and religious truth. To make the crucifixion scenes as gruesomely realistic as possible, Mel Gibson went beyond theology. He even delved into medical research. He cited a paper from the Journal of the American Medical Association that described the brutal methods of Roman execution. And to be honest, as brutal as Hollywood can get, Roman crucifixions were already nightmare material. There was no need to exaggerate. Let's get serious for a moment. Archaeology also backed Gibson's efforts. In 1968, archaeologists in Givat HaMivtar, northeast of Jerusalem, made a stunning discovery: a bone box containing the remains of a crucified man. These weren't just any old bones. After nearly 2 millennia, a 4.5-inch nail was still embedded in his heel bone. It was a mic drop moment for history, proving that crucifixions in first-century Judea actually occurred, just as ancient texts described. But the revelations didn't stop there. Our popular images of crucifixion, influenced by centuries of Christian art and film, aren't entirely accurate. For instance, the famous depiction of victims carrying entire wooden crosses? Not how it happened. They only carried the crossbeam, far more realistic for someone who'd been severely beaten. And what about the nails through Jesus' palms? That's another misconception. Experts now believe the nails were driven into the wrists, not the palms. The palms wouldn't have supported the weight of an adult man during crucifixion, particularly not after the trauma of a Roman beating. But the Passion went beyond physical accuracy. The crucifixion was also framed within the context of Roman history. During the reign of Emperor Tiberius, Roman historian Tacitus, known for his impartiality, recorded the execution of Christ, lending weight to the Gospel accounts. Jewish historian Josephus, writing around 94 AD, also mentioned Jesus, further supporting the story. Even Pliny the Younger referred to early Christians in his letters. And let's not forget the discovery of the Pilate stone in Caesarea, Israel, in 1961, a limestone inscription bearing the name Pontius Pilate. This find confirmed that Pilate was a real historical figure, not just a biblical character. It was a game changer, especially given Pilate's central role in the crucifixion. Crucifixion wasn't a common punishment. It was a statement, a horrifying public declaration by the Roman Empire to silence dissent. Josephus documents mass crucifixions in unstable regions like Judea. Jesus' execution was strategic, meant not just to kill one man, but to send a brutal message. It's clear that the filmmakers behind The Passion of the Christ worked hard to ground it in reality. Whether every frame is 100% accurate or not, they pulled from ancient texts, medical studies, and archaeology. The result? A haunting, deeply human story with historical roots beautifully brought to life. Mel Gibson built a portal to first-century Jerusalem. From worn faces to dusty streets, everything in The Passion felt raw and real. Caleb Deschanel, the Oscar-nominated cinematographer, crafted each scene like a painting, filled with vivid color and emotional weight. Production designer Francesco Frigeri even reused sets from Gangs of New York to give it a gritty, realistic atmosphere. Costumes were crafted with equal care. Designer Maurizio Milanotti dug into historical sources to ensure every outfit told a story. Roman clothing reflected social class, and armor bore signs of battle. The cast endured intense conditions. During the crucifixion scenes, Jim Caviezel, who played Jesus, spent 8 hours daily in makeup and suffered from hypothermia, chronic pain, and a separated shoulder. Caviezel described the experience as profoundly spiritual, leaning on his faith throughout the grueling shoot. Even the set became a place of spiritual refuge. Mel Gibson made sure priests were available daily for confession, communion, and guidance. When The Passion of the Christ hit theaters, it sparked intense debate. Some criticized its graphic violence, others praised it as sacred art. Roger Ebert called it the most violent film I've ever seen. In response, Gibson later released a toned-down version, cutting about 5 minutes of extreme scenes. In the end, the controversy only fueled its success. The $30 million production made nearly $600 million, becoming one of the most profitable religious films in history.